Can you imagine, dear viewer, that something terrifying could board a passenger bus and ride along with the others after midnight? Even worse, that something completely unexpected might happen because of that thing that got on the bus? I know you might find it hard to believe, but let me take you to where it all happened. In China, specifically in Beijing. It all started with bus number 375. This bus departed from its station shortly after midnight, around 12 a.m, and it was the last bus of the night to leave the station. There were only a few passengers on board, barely enough to count on one hand. The bus was driving down a quiet road when suddenly, the driver spotted two shadowy figures standing in the middle of the road, in the middle of the night, in the freezing cold, waving their hands at the bus. The driver stopped, opened the door, and let them on. But as soon as he saw them up close, his jaw dropped in shock and fear. All the passengers were frozen in terror at what they had just witnessed. The driver continued on his route. But here's the real question. Were those who got on the bus that night even human? Why were the driver and the passengers so horrified? And more importantly, can you guess what happened to that bus that night? These are the questions we'll uncover in today's episode. For your information, this terrifying story is considered one of the strangest incidents ever recorded in China. And to this day, there is no explanation for it. If you're watching my channel for the first time and you're into horror, mystery, and crime stories, this is exactly the kind of content we post weekly. Don't forget to subscribe and join our growing family. Now let's dive into the chilling details of our story. Shout out to all the legends who love horror content. There's plenty more like this on the channel. All I ask is that we break the 1,000 likes barrier on this episode, and I know you can do it. Let's not drag it out any longer. Let's begin. The story begins, as I said earlier, in Beijing, China, specifically in November of 1995. At that time, a bus left Yuanmingwen station, and it was the last bus of the night, bus number 375. This was supposed to be the bus's final trip before returning to the station and starting fresh the next morning. But what happened was the exact opposite of normal. That night, just past midnight, it was very cold, with light winds. The driver boarded the bus, accompanied as usual by his female assistant, whose job was to help organise passengers and hand out tickets. The bus drove for a short distance, then stopped to pick up three people, a young single man and a married couple. The bus continued until it stopped at another station, where an elderly woman boarded. She walked down the aisle and sat in the second to last row. The bus drove on again through the darkness and freezing cold, with all the passengers silent, waiting to reach their homes. After a while, the driver suddenly slammed the brakes so hard that the passengers banged their heads against the seats in front of them. Why? He had spotted two people in the distance, standing in the middle of the road, waving at him to stop. The driver was furious. They could have been hit, and buses aren't allowed to stop in the middle of the road, only at official stations. But surprisingly, the driver did stop and opened the door. What the passengers saw next was shocking and terrifying. Even the driver looked stunned, his mouth wide open. the two figures boarded the bus, and that's when the passengers realized why the driver had reacted that way. They had harsh, stiff, and frightening features, and wore ancient traditional Chinese clothing, the kind that had long since gone out of use. But the strangest part was that they weren't two people. They were three. The two were holding up a third man who looked exhausted and limp, his head tilted downward so his face couldn't be seen. The three walked silently to the very back seat of the bus and sat down, placing the third man between them. The passenger layout was now driver and assistant in the front, the married couple behind them, the young man behind the couple, the elderly woman behind him, and finally, the three mysterious figures in the back. The old woman, being closest to them, kept glancing at them nervously, too afraid to turn fully. The assistant noticed the fear on the passengers' faces and tried to calm them quietly, suggesting maybe the three were actors coming from a performance. After a few minutes, the married couple asked to get off at the next stop. The driver obliged. Now only these people remained: the young man, the old woman, the three strangers, the driver, the assistant. The old woman, still close to the mysterious trio, kept turning around in fear, thinking, these can't be human. And she wasn't the only one. Everyone on the bus was tense and suspicious, terrified by the stranger's appearance and unnatural silence. Then, in a sudden and shocking move, the elderly woman grabbed the young man and screamed, "Thief! Thief!" The young man, startled, replied, "How could I steal from you? I'm sitting right in front of you." But the woman insisted he stole her wallet, demanded to be taken to the police, and asked the driver to stop the bus. With her persistence and loud shouting, the driver pulled over in the middle of the road and let both of them off. Now, question of the episode: why did the old woman accuse the young man of stealing and get off the bus with him? Pause the video and write your guess in the comments. After they got off, the woman calmly walked away, like nothing had happened. The young man, shocked, yelled after her, "Didn't you say I stole from you? Why are you walking away now?" She stopped, turned to him and said, "Instead of thanking me, you're blaming me? I just saved your life from certain death. If you had stayed on that bus, you would have died." He asked her what she meant, and she explained. The two who had boarded the bus were not human. They were demons in disguise. She said, if you had paid attention to their feet, you would have known. They weren't moving, and they didn't seem alive. Their long robes were completely covering their legs, because that's the only way you could spot them. Their feet aren't human. She continued, the man they were holding was human, but he was already dead. I realized this when I caught a glimpse of their feet as they sat down behind me. The young man, stunned, thought she was just a crazy old woman and went home. But the story doesn't end here. The next morning, the young man was shocked to hear the news. Bus 375 had gone missing without a trace. The bus never returned to the station. The company reported it to the police, who launched a full investigation, but found nothing. The old woman went to the police and told them everything she had witnessed that night. But of course, they didn't believe her. The police don't file reports on demons or spirits. The young man also came forward and told them what happened. 2 days later, a local resident called the police, claiming he saw a sunken bus in an artificial lake near the area. The police rushed to the scene, and there it was, bus 375, submerged. And here's where the real horror began. The location of the lake was 100 kilometers away from where the bus was supposed to be. None of the surveillance cameras showed the bus passing along the main roads. The amount of fuel in the tank wasn't even enough to make it that far. Even more horrifying, when the police opened the fuel tank, they found it filled with blood. Inside the bus were 3 bodies: the driver, the assistant, and an unidentified man, presumed to be the limp one carried on board. All 3 were dead in terrifying conditions, each with their mouths wide open and faces frozen in horror, as if they had seen something that literally stopped their hearts. So now the question is, was this the work of demons, or something beyond human understanding? Let me know your thoughts and theories in the comments. And with that, we've reached the end of the story.